You know how to hold it all together, but when it comes to your relationships, something's always missing. Welcome to Emotionally Wealthy, a podcast for high achievers who are ready to trade emotional disconnection for clarity, fulfillment, and relationships that are nourishing, not draining. I'm your host, Karen Conlon, licensed therapist, transformational coach, and your guide in turning insight into action. Are you ready for it? Let's do this. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Emotionally Wealthy podcast. I'm Karen Conlon, and today's conversation, it warms my soul. It touches me deeply because today's conversation is for anyone who has checked all the right boxes, maybe built an impressive career, and still, at some point in their lives, found themselves quietly wondering why it didn't feel the way that they thought it would. I'm joined today by Allie Canton. Allie is a Harvard-trained healthcare attorney and tech exec who spent more than a decade working in high-stakes, high-performing environments. On paper, I'll tell you, Allie was doing everything right, incredibly impressive, really achieved many successes at a young age. But internally, burnout really cracked open the deeper questions about purpose, about fulfillment, and about who she was becoming inside this life that she had built, a life that was built around striving and performance. Allie's path from performance to presence didn't happen overnight. And today, Allie explores what it means to live on purpose, not perfectly, but to live on purpose and with purpose. This conversation is about identity, self-awareness, and what happens when success stops being enough and something more honest begins to ask for your attention. I'm really glad you're here for this. Allie, welcome.
Karen, thank you so much for having me on. And I just want to thank also the universe for bringing our paths.
My gosh.
At some point, maybe we'll get into it, but let's just say that the universe really, really, really wanted you and I to meet and to get together. And it's been fantastic getting to know you, sharing our stories with each other. And I'm so excited for your podcast.
Yes, one day we will have to share and maybe actually, maybe do a topic on the universe, right? And I will absolutely share the story because the story of how we met each other is kind of incredible.
It's like cuckoo.
It's cuckoo. It's universal. It's global. It's spiritual. It's manifestation. I mean, it is all of those things packed in one. So if you never believed in any or in one of those things, I will be sharing the story one day so that you can understand and believe that these things are real. There's so much depth and so much interest and interesting parts of your life. I would love to start with the beginning. Tell me a little bit about who Allie was before, Harvard and before all the accolades. Tell me about little Allie.
All right. Well, first and foremost, I'm a Jersey girl. So shout out to all my Garden State people who might be listening. So I grew up in a suburban part of New Jersey. My father is an immigrant from Honduras. My mom, actually was like a country girl growing up in rural New Jersey. And I feel like there was always a lot of pressure on me to achieve. Yeah. And my grandparents who came here from Honduras, my father, when he came here as a kid, there were just so many sacrifices that people had made. And I was always acutely aware of that. Even when I think I was 7 or 8, the first time that I went down to Honduras with my father, and I saw the shack that he grew up in. I saw the United Fruit plantation where my grandfather worked picking bananas, and I saw the poverty that surrounded me, and I understood that, if not for their decision to come up here, my life would be radically different. And that sense of knowing and honoring the privileges that I'm enjoying now is something that I've always carried with me. But I'll just say, and this is like no shade to my fam, but it came with a lot of pressure. Like I was one of the more academically inclined of the grandchildren. There's like, I don't know, 15, 20, I can't even count all my cousins.
Wow.
But like there were like a lot of us.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, who's brilliant, but literally, you know, was picking bananas. He worked at a tire factory. He worked at a cosmetics factory when he was in the US. Never had the chance to, you know, finish high school. I think he got to high school, never got the chance to finish it. But a brilliant man. He would always say to me, you get the A for Allie, you get the plus for me. And then my dad would say, oh yeah, and then you get the plus for me. And I was like, they're not even giving that grade. Like, that's not even a real grade. And they're like, I don't care. Which I think, you know, many of us who have come from immigrant families, we can recognize. We can
attest. Yep.
That,
we can recognize
right? That we're like, unrealistic expectation does not matter. They're like, do you know what I went through to get here? Like I went through some unrealistic stuff to make sure that you're in this position. So, you know, it helped that like I loved school. I loved learning, but I felt this pressure early on for it to look a certain way, to make good on all of the investments that my family had put into me. And I think also as a girl, as a woman coming from a Latino family, I just got messages around, you know, it's like, oh, my brothers were the ones who are going to do something big and be the executive. And, you know,
it sounds to me like there was a combination of both verbal messages around look at where you could have been and were not, and also the nonverbal messages around being the girl or the social aspects of it, the cultural aspects of not just gender, but also of being first and foremost the kid of an immigrant. You mentioned the return on investment, and that is something that, and I don't remember if you quite said it like that. That once again, there's like verbal and nonverbal messages around what you, as the child of parents who have given so much up for you to have a better life, kind of owe back. Was there a sense of that for you in different moments in life, or was it something that was like an underlying pressure? I don't know if that's the right word.
No, I mean, it was explicit actually from both from my father and from my grandfather. I mean, my grandfather said that he never had the chance to go to college. Yeah. So, you know, absolutely, right? I was going to go to college, and I was going to go to the best college that I got into. And I remember my father, he went to college and he went to law school. He was actually a lawyer as well. But he wanted me to go to even way better schools than he got into. So I remember he was pissed at me when I was in high school that I wouldn't apply to Princeton. I was like, I don't want to go to Princeton. I don't want to be in New Jersey. I also had a lot of self-doubt. So I was like, I'm not even going to get in. So why bother applying? But there was always this pressure to like aim as high as possible. And it didn't really, you know, it wasn't like, oh, I want you to go to Princeton because they have a program around XYZ. And I think that you'll really enjoy it. I think that it'll really light you up. Yeah. It was more of like, let's aim for the highest prestige, highest brand name, because I want you to affiliate with that and to achieve that. There really wasn't ever a question about what is it that I want to do? What is it that I am interested in? What are the environments that I would feel supported in, that I would thrive in? Yeah. You know? Yeah. Those are all like secondary considerations.
Sure. They're secondary, but here, you know, here's the question and here are the doubts. And then these are all the things that are sort of the supporting actors, right? To what you were feeling. what happens so often is that there was a lack of parental attunement. And what I mean by that is that there you were, maybe feeling insecure as a teen normally would not know how to communicate as well, perhaps, or articulate. Because sometimes, it doesn't matter how well spoken, how articulate you are. You could be a fantastic writer, but it doesn't mean that that is going to apply to being able to express your emotions, especially as a teen when you're still really figuring yourself out. And it sounds like there was not much, if any, curiosity to ask you, well, why wouldn't you? Or why, what's keeping you? Are you afraid? Right? There was that lack of parental attunement in terms of checking in with you.
Yeah. And Karen, I'm reminded of that. There's that saying that we are ancestors' wildest dreams. And I think that that's true, but very often I think, especially for children of immigrant parents or folks who maybe came from lower income backgrounds, we're living our ancestors' wildest dreams, but we're not living our own.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't even know. So reflecting back on like teenage Allie, there are a lot of ways that I didn't even know what my dreams were, or I didn't put them on equal footing as what I'd internalized as other people's expectations of me. So what do my dad and my grandfather want? What do my teachers want for me? I think I actually even then knew what I wanted, but I didn't take it seriously.
Why not? Looking back now, why not?
I think that the things that I was interested in, so I was always really interested in religion and spirituality. I like to say that there are these two strands of my DNA my whole life, where there was like the achievement strand and then there was the spiritual strand. But unlike healthy DNA, where it actually intertwines, I was like, no, I'm going to keep these separate, like, like a ladder. So it was actually kind of like structurally unsound. So I have such a vivid memory, actually, of looking through the college course book when I was admitted to college and putting stars next to all of the classes that I wanted to take. And there were so many in anthropology, in religion. Like, I've always been fascinated by how societies organize themselves. What are the values that they prioritize? What are the values that we think are important to living a life that we're satisfied with? What's the role of our relationship to divinity? Like all of those things. I think I probably like should have been a religion major, but in my mind, that was so fluffy. That was not something to be taken seriously. I was terrible at math. Like I stopped taking math, I think like after 11th grade. And
me too, actually. Funny. Yeah, me too. I couldn't wait until I didn't have to take math again. It was a torture for me.
But I was like, oh, I'm going to be, for a moment, I was like, I'm going to be an econ major because those are serious people and those are the smart people and they're going to get the big jobs. And then I took one econ class and I just like got totally laid out in my butt. And I was like, all right, so I think I'm going to be a poli-sci major because like that's also something to take really seriously.
So Allie, it sounds like you were this young person trying to manage expectations of others, trying to manage the emotional well-being and the emotional temperature of the adults around you and what they were expecting of you. And, the other thing that came to me as I think about this is, and what you said before about our ancestors, so much pressure, right? Because it's also all the hopes and dreams that maybe they're not telling you about, but you feel it, right? You feel the pressure of needing to be the one that manifests all of these hopes and dreams. It's almost like you're carrying that on your back.
Oh yeah. I was the one who made it happen. Right.
Yeah.
That was my job. And I felt like I was the one I had to dazzle other people. I thrived on that praise. I think there are a lot of ways that to the point I was making earlier, like abandoned myself, in that I feel like I was often raised, and you might have been raised with like similar messages. I think that in a lot of like Latino families, it's like, oh no, we're a collective and we're a crew. And that means that other people's needs matter more than mine. So I just was, and there's a lot of healthy, aspects of that, right? I'm a parent now and I want my children to be considerate. I want them to help others. But I feel like the messages that I received, or at least the way that I internalized them, were that my needs did not matter as long as there was a roof over my head and food in my belly and clothes on my back. I didn't have anything to complain about. Like those are actually explicit messages that I received. So then when that's your framework, there's no room for questions like, what makes me happy?
Yeah.
How do I want to spend my day? Right? There was no room for anything like that. And then
it's like those questions become selfish.
Oh, they're selfish. Yeah. And you know what? Like, yeah, for sure. My grandfather did not want to work at the cosmetics factory or at the tire plant and walk 3 miles, when the bus wasn't running anymore after midnight to leave his shift. Like, I know he did not want to do that. So who am I to complain about, being a lawyer and having my fancy job and this and that? There's like a lot of shame. I know we're fast forwarding a little bit, but there was a lot of shame that I experienced whenever I felt like I wasn't honoring myself and honoring my own needs. I would just say, okay, we'll shove it down. It's like, these are such privileged problems to have that I shouldn't give them airtime and space. Like, stop your complaining.
Yeah.
But what I've come to realize is that I'm actually doing my ancestors a disservice if I am not living my most vibrant, thriving life. Like, that is actually what they were aiming for. But given the circumstances that they were navigating, it was like, okay, well, let me just assure a life.
Yes.
Period. Right? Yeah. Like they were sort of at the step one. So when we think about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they were at some of the more foundational steps in the hierarchy that they couldn't even imagine trying to prioritize or fulfill those, the ultimate self-actualization needs that are at the tippy top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
And
well, those seem frivolous, right? When you look at when you look at, Maslow's hierarchy, and we today know that they are not, right? Because you really can't have one without the other and be fully or optimally healthy, right? But when you look at it in terms of survival, these needs, right, to be happy, to be fulfilled, to want a different type of life where maybe you're not struggling as much in certain ways, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, those seem like a frivolous endeavor, given what you're supposed to do to survive, right? Have a great job, have a great career, have a great title, achieve, produce, perform. Right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask for you then, Allie, you mentioned self-abandonment a minute ago, and it sounds like you took or spent a lot of time in that space of self-abandonment being kind of your normal. I'd love to switch gears a little bit now and learn a little bit more about the moment or moments where you could no longer sustain that amount of self-abandonment.
I'll definitely say there's a series of moments. About 2 years before my big moment. I'd say my big breakdown. I had made a big move for my family to move out of New York City and to the Hudson Valley. I was leaving a big startup job that I'd had. And I told myself, I'm taking at least 6 months off, maybe longer. And my whole focus now is family, community, and spirituality. And like, that's what I'm going to give myself over to.
Yeah.
The problem was I didn't really believe myself. Like those were the things that I was saying, but that was not the truth that I had internalized.
Right.
Because about when 6 months were up, my dream job with dream coworkers popped up. And, my boss at the time, he's a wonderful person and a wonderful salesperson. And he was like, I will make it possible for you. You can do this general counsel job and you can do it part-time and you can do this and this and that. And we're totally going to support all of that. And I think ego really glommed on. And I was like, I'm finally going to get the title that I wanted. The startup's going to make a bunch of money. We know, of course, the startup is still around, but it's like 99% of startups fail. So it's like, spoiler alert, if you're like, don't go to startups for the money. And it just sort of grabbed me as like, oh, this is the thing to do. So I ended up, long story short, there's no such thing as being a part-time general counsel at a company.
I mean, I can't even imagine.
Startup. Like,
oh yeah,
not true. And I kept having these moments over the 2 years that I was there where I would just get this ping. And it's funny, you and I were talking about somatic knowing. I would get these pings in my body, in my gut, in my chest, in my throat of like, oh my God, I'm so tense. I'm so anxious. I don't think that this is how it's meant to be. And then my really pivotal moment, one of the most pivotal moments this was about 6 months before I left. I woke up in the middle of the night. It was like 2 or 3 a.m. and my mind was just racing. I was so agitated. So I picked up a notebook and I just started writing. And it was, I hate this. I can't do this anymore. Wow. I'm miserable. I need to leave. I'm burnt out. I can't. And it was just like 5 or 10 pages of that. And it was almost like that deeper knowing within me was like, girl, you've been ignoring me for way too long. And I need to make my presence known. And this is how we're really feeling.
Wow. Wow.
So, it's like I was writing like that for probably an hour or so. And then I went back to bed. And then in the morning, I have to look at this. And it looks like, the scribbles of a lunatic. Right. But it's like, oh, no, that lunatic is me. And that is actually my deeper knowing. So that was the point at which I was like, I have to make a change. This is not really working for me. And it took me some time honestly, to like really listen and prioritize that voice, because actually after that I was like, no, I can like tweak things at the margin, or I can fix it here or there. And maybe for some people that would work, right? It depends on how out of alignment you are with your authentic expression of your purpose. Yeah. And I think that there was a very different life and a very different phase that was waiting for me, beckoning me, and then just screaming at me eventually to be like, this is not working. This is not how we want life to be. And, I would joke with myself. I don't think I ever said this out loud because it's like an insane thing to say. But I would always tell myself like, oh, I'll be happy in another life. This is not the lifetime where I get to be happy. This is the lifetime where I work really hard and I have the big job and I have the prestige and the accolades and the this and the that. So it took me a long time to really feel like, to our earlier point, it felt frivolous. The idea of listening to my needs, honoring what I wanted from my life, and then actually prioritizing that. I mean, it seemed impossible.
Yeah, it's almost, as I hear you speaking, I'm envisioning this picture of you getting up in the middle of the night and just kind of like ruminating and needing to detox your brain from all of this stuff, right? So I'm not surprised, right? As an attorney, someone who writes and analyzes for a living, that first thing was pen and paper, right? Which is actually, I think, a great practice for anyone. If that's happening to you in the middle of the night, to just kind of, be able to exhale all of that stuff onto paper, pen and paper. But it's almost like what you're saying is that girl from high school and then in college who wanted to take all these courses that really spoke to her, she had never left. Like, you had told her to calm the F down because there's no space for you here. It sounds like she was always kind of knocking, sometimes a little louder, sometimes a little softer.
Yes. And, I think that we can often recognize those parts of us that we're repressing by seeing who really triggers us. So
say more, girlfriend. Yes.
There was a woman that I went to college with, and, I followed her on social media, whatever. And she would trigger me so much because she's always posting about like women who run with wolves. And she has this like amazing, creative profession that seems like it's doing really, who knows, but like, it seems like it's doing really well. She seems really engaged and lit up by it. She was having a lot of fun, and like, I'll just say social media, right? Like projection versus reality. Sure. But she was being very like weirdly and authentically herself. And like, I could not stop like hate consuming her stuff. And it's only later that I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I was so envious of her because she was living out the type of life that I had told myself, like, no, you don't get to do that this lifetime. So that is like also little like tips and tricks, right? Like, see who really triggers you. Because that might be a piece of you that you're like actively ignoring.
Yeah, absolutely. Information, right? Like those body signals. And that's the thing that I'm getting from you too, is that you really leaned into the body work and the somatic work in a purposeful and intentional way later. However, it seems to me that was always there. I don't get the sense that you were fully disconnected and kind of living left brain, cognitive, rationalizing, intellectualizing life. It sounds to me like you were trying to be there, but that other side of you was always saying, hey, I'm still here. I need attention. You need to look at me. You need to listen.
Yeah. I think that you're absolutely right. So it's like I have all these spiritual books behind me, and I started studying Buddhism when I was 15 years old. I was a very spiritual child, raised Catholic before that. So yes, that piece of me was always there. It was always active. But the difference is that I would say the biggest difference between how I operate now versus how I operated then was that before, that left brain part of me, the doer, achiever, whatever, was in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And, said to the right brain side of me, the more intuitive, soulful side, like, okay, you get your 30 minutes of meditation a day, you get your spiritual books that you get to read, when on the subway, on the way to work or whatever it is. But you're not in charge. I'm in charge. We've got important things to do. And like, whatever you're doing over there is great. And maybe it's helping make me more effective, productive, present, maybe. But yeah, you're not in charge. And I would say, at least the aspiration for how I live now is that now that part of me is in the driver's seat, I really try to view intuition, connection with divinity, that relational aspect as the driver, the general. And then I don't want to totally get rid of that left brain
Yeah, of course not.
achievement doer person because, or, aspect of me, because it's amazing. It's done. It's like, I can't
Yeah.
complain, but like it has brought so many blessings into my
Hmm.
life, even as it brought a lot of suffering and self-abandonment, right?
Yes.
Everything has its gift and everything has its shadow. So now if intuition is in the driver's seat and, the doer part of me is the passenger seat, but like they're helping me navigate, right? They're helping me figure out, oh, I see a slowdown over here. So now we're going to take this other route, but we're going to start off by listening to intuition.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're describing in terms of psychology, there's a modality called IFS, internal family systems, where, very much like what you're saying, this modality talks about one of the things it talks about is that we all have parts, right? Different parts of us. And if you think about it, right, when you're trying to make a decision, oftentimes you're kind of saying to yourself, well, there's this part of me that wants this,
Yes.
and then the other part of me that wants that, right? I mean, that's a really common thing that I think all very commonly experience. The problem is that sometimes those different parts of us have the driver's seat, and the one that has the driver's seat, like what you're describing, isn't willing to share. Now,
Yes.
it's out of protection. It's not out of anything, nefarious. It's protection, right? And it's interesting because when I hear you talk about the part of you that was taking the driver's seat, it's the manager, right?
Yes.
And the manager part of you is like, well, that all sounds very nice and yeah, sure, but let's get down to business here and brass tacks. And what that means is that we need to firmly put our feet on the ground. And when reality hits, we need to go with what we know works.
And for me, it was like hard work works. So work could not be easy or joyful or pleasurable.
Tell me a little bit more about that aspect, about what it said about you to you if you were doing something that was joyful, that was fun. What did it say about you during that time?
Yeah. Well, first, it just wasn't a serious, like if you're having fun, that's not serious. That's a hobby.
Interesting.
That's not, that's something that you save for the margins. It's probably not something that's valuable. And what's been really interesting to me is seeing the ways that joy and playfulness and abundance can actually create this virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
Now I love writing. I
Yeah.
love being in conversation with other people. I love getting to know folks. I love building community. I love my meditation and qigong and energy practices. Those are all things that I would have considered like hobbies, nice to have. And I am seeing in real time the way that those things light me up is then a magnet for people and opportunities that are aligned to make their way to myself. And that has just been a game changer for me. Honestly, it's mind blowing to me because I didn't think it could work that way at all.
Well, because it sounds like you have really, by allowing yourself to lean into the fear and understand the source of shame around allowing yourself to feel joy and all the things that one experiences or that you experienced when making that shift, by allowing yourself to do that, it sounds like you've realized that, wait a minute, not only do I not have to let go of that other side of myself, the high achiever, the producer, I actually can embrace it into who I want to be, because it's a beautiful combination of now these skills that I was able to more than prove to myself, right? That they work for me very well in certain circumstances. But now you're able to meld these parts of you so that you can resource from within yourself these different tools and these different aspects of yourself when you need them.
Yes.
And so it's the not needing to choose and knowing that you can choose, knowing that you have the choice. I want to jump back a little bit, right? We talked about you getting here. We talked about you waking up in the middle of the night and, you know, having all this rumination and writing it all down. I want to ask you, so for the person out there that's listening and like this is all resonating, saying, oh my gosh, wait, I've had these moments, or I feel like I'm close to having this moment. What do we do with that? Right? My question to you is, what were your first questions? Right? Because one thing is writing it down and then looking at it the next day and saying, this is insane, right? This looks like the writing of like someone who is just like really out there. But then you ended up following through. Something happened, right? Not just some things happened. But before some things can happen, before you can take action, there must have been questions. So do you remember what some of those questions were that you asked yourself, maybe even for the first time, maybe the first time you gave yourself permission to ask yourself certain questions?
Yeah. So let's see. There were definitely questions that I asked myself, but I think even deeper than that was once I saw the writing on the paper, it felt like I had to take my happiness and my unhappiness seriously. Like that was just a new shift for me versus, you know, the message of like, oh, I'm just not going to be happy in this lifetime. I had to open up for myself that happiness within this lifetime in my day-to-day was a possibility. And it was something that I deserved. And I wasn't entitled in terms of wanting this or asking for this from my life. And by the way, it's only on me to make myself happy. I can't blame anyone else, right? I can't blame my father, my grandfather, my job, you know, my kids, my this, my that,
Your boss who was a good seller of the position.
My boss, right? I can't blame any of those other people. If I'm unhappy with my life, I'm unhappy with my circumstances, that's on me. And I deserve to be joyful. So that was like one of just the big shifts that I underwent. And then a friend of mine, one of my best friends, she's been on this journey with me for a long time. And I was just sharing what I was experiencing and what I was going through. And she recommended that I read this book called Designing Your Life. And it's a fantastic book. I think it comes out of Stanford Business School, if I'm remembering. And they have all of these different exercises, which basically are using design principles to help you uncover what kind of life lights you up across all of these dynamics. And one of the exercises that it recommended I do, I think for 3 weeks, I think I did it for like 2 weeks, was an energy audit. So I would actually, so I found my days super depleting, right? But I didn't really know why. And it's easy to lump everything into one bucket of like, oh, well, it's my job, right? Or it's this relationship or whatever. But it was amazing to write down activity by activity. Like I had a call with so-and-so, and then I had to do some emails, and then I did an analysis, and then I walked my dog, you know, and then writing down on a scale from 1, it's actually, I think like -10 to +10.
Oh, wow.
Like a little gauge of what was depleting and what was energizing. And then you would do a little check box to identify when you were in a flow state. And that was really helpful for me because I realized I was like, okay, so actually these specific interactions with these types of people that's what's depleting. This type of interaction or this type of activity really lights me up. So it was a tool actually, even before I quit, to try to improve the job a bit and to try to improve my day and how I structured it so that I could dial up the things that gave me energy and or make sure that I had enough of those in my day if there was something that was unavoidable that was depleting that I knew that I was going to have to work with. And that was just a mini practice for me. I think sometimes when people are unhappy and they're unhappy with their jobs, it's like the tendency is to just blow up the whole, it's like, I just want to blow the whole thing up and I have to quit my job and I have to leave and blah, blah, blah. But like, we've got families, we've got kids, we've got mortgages, we've got car payments, we've got aging parents. We've got a whole lot of reasons that it might not be realistic to just blow up your whole job and financial situation. So what I found really helpful about that question of the energy audit, it was like, how can I, within this circumstance, like dial up the things that make me happy and start the micro practice of prioritizing my happiness in the day-to-day within the container of the life that I have.
So doing it in micro steps, small steps, so that it is not overwhelming. It also sounds like it's something that is doable. It's not a goal to do all the things that have a positive little check mark next to them. It's about having almost like a checklist of things that you can refer to see what can I add a little bit more of. And I really like that approach because it gives you the freedom to choose, which oftentimes is part of the issue, right? It's part of the problem is that we feel like we have no choice. So if we can find little spaces in life and in our daily practices where we can say, well, I have a choice to do this now. I woke up really, didn't have great sleep. I woke up not feeling great. I'm going to choose to have some gratitude for the fact that the sun is out and it's gorgeous.
I'm going to take 1 minute and get my face in the sun.
Yes. Oh, I thought you were going to do that now. I was like, go ahead.
You're like, that sounds great. Let's go do it.
I'm like, let's go do that. I love
What are the micro choices that I can make in this moment that like, oh, I know that I feel so much better when my body is in the sun, or I know I feel so much better when my feet are in the grass. And like, I'm going to take if I'm feeling off, I'm just going to take 1 minute and do something that feeds me and nourishes me before I jump into things that might be more challenging or depleting. The other thing that the practice was really helpful for, even the writing it down and the grading it, is that it encouraged me to take more of an experimental approach to what I'm doing. I think that for many high achievers, we're like, we want to rush to the ending. We want the A+ polished version of things. And so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And by writing things down, I found that I was able to be like, oh, well, actually, I noticed I was really lit up when I did XYZ. So like, let's see if I like shift it in this way or in that way. And then I was working with a coach, Catherine Powell. She's actually a creativity coach. She's a really great friend. I was thinking about offering more meditation. I had this whole, I need to create a website and I need to have 20 meditations recorded and I need to do this and that. And the most like thing. Actually, that would have been like a dead offering, right? There wouldn't have been life and vitality and freshness in it. So she said to me, before you do all that, before you start calling yourself a meditation teacher, branding, she goes, why don't you just offer a meditation to a group of friends at your house and just see what happens? And she gave me a structured list of questions afterwards, both for myself and for the attendees, so that I could get some feedback on like, how was it for other people and how did it feel for me? Yeah. And it was so freeing to take that experimental approach. And that's something that I've carried with me where, whether it's my writing or my podcast or meditation, Reiki, qigong, community organizing, I'm like, I just got to do it once, try it out, see how it feels. And like, I'm not signing myself up for a life of this thing. If it's something that lights me up, amazing. maybe I'll do it again. Maybe I'll do it again in the same way. Maybe I'll play around with different versions of it. Or similarly, if it's something that I thought was going to be the be all end all, and then I tried it and I'm like, oh, actually, this kind of sucks. Like I gave myself the space to not do it again.
Yeah. And I think part of the part of the struggle that high achievers have is once they start something, it's very difficult to say, oh, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. Because there's a certain amount of conditioning and dare I say programming that happens to overachievers and high achievers, where it's like when you start something, not only do you have to see it to the end, it's got to be amazing.
Yes.
And it's got to be full, and you've got to check it. You go into project management mode. And I, one of the things that I really love about what this coach, your friend, gave you with that exercise is, number one, she gave you permission to just try it out. Number two, what I'm also hearing is that apart from that permission, in a way, she still spoke and allowed in that achiever part of you.
Yes.
Right? Because you're able to do things that are, okay, this is quantifiable, and, I can do a group for my friends, and in a way that allows you to nourish that side of you that's there, while also not giving it full control.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
Right?
And exactly, like, to get back to your point around IFS, we have these parts. This is what they are, and we're not, throwing them off the bus, so to speak. Like they're part of the team, but we just have to notice them and say, okay, I see you. Here's a little something that might help you calm down. But now we're going to go, and we're going to try doing things in a different way.
Yeah. Talk about doing things in a different way. One of the things that you have talked about is how burnout just cracked something open for you. And since we are on the topic of the energy audit and you becoming aware of what are the things that were robbing you of your energy, and what were the things that were inserting a full battery into your mind and body and soul, right? Tell us a little bit about your burnout story in terms of what happened, what was the turning point, and you can start wherever you want, wherever it feels right or makes sense. But, for all of those people listening out there who are like, wait a minute, are you kidding? You went to Harvard, you were general counsel, you were all these things, and burnout happened, and probably happened more than once, by the way, because typically we go through various sessions of burnout before there's this one big one that you're like, oh yeah, we're not doing this again. But if you could tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that for someone listening who gets where you're at, or maybe you were at where they are striving to be, but maybe they're listening to this now because they're like, but wait, do I really want to go there? Or is there a different way of getting there? Right? I think it'd be great to be able to offer them your story, your experience, and then maybe a little bit about that turning point. And you've given us some turning points already, but I think that in our lifetimes, we have so many different turning points and so many different signals that we get when we allow them in. So maybe that's the question, right? What did you allow in? When did you allow it? What did it look like?
No, your point around that we go through many burnouts absolutely resonates. And sometimes it's hard to even recognize them as burnouts in the moment. So I was so used to operating on the cortisol and adrenaline that it was hard for the signals to come through. But I would think about it. It's like I would, burn the midnight oil night after night, and I'd find myself going to sleep, trying to go to sleep. and I couldn't, because it's like I was buzzing. It felt like my mind and my body was buzzing. And that was just something that I would notice happening.
It's like you couldn't turn it like you couldn't turn it off.
I couldn't turn it off. But
Yeah.
it's like, you know, I would stay up, even if, let's say I was working until midnight, I'd maybe stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. because it would just be hard to stop.
Yeah.
My body didn't know how to stop. My brain didn't know how to stop. And then be like, oh, this is terrible. I'm so tired and I need to go to bed and I can't sleep. So that was just like starting to be an early signal of like, how many times am I in that space where my body is running on an energy that is actually clearly very foreign to it. As much as I'm used to it, it is not the energy that my body wants to be running on.
Yeah.
So that's just one thing that I'll say to folks. It's like, how often are you having that buzzy middle of the night feeling? That might be a sign that you're burnt out. You don't know it.
Yeah.
And, you know, then there were a couple big moments for me when because I actually tried to quit my job a couple times before I ended up quitting. Well, first I tried optimizing, right? And I do think it's worth, you know, trying to optimize, because maybe your situation, like I said, maybe other situations in your life don't support at this moment you blowing things up, but also maybe your situation could be better if you just tweaked how you were spending your day. And after I wrote out all those pages, here's what happened. I started interrogating them with logic.
Interesting.
And with analytic mind.
Yeah.
And the intuitive expressions that came through didn't like that very much. They're like, you need to take me seriously for what I'm saying. And I'm like, no, but why exactly are you upset about that? Because it should be like this, or it should be like that. And then the whole thing just sort of falls apart. And intuition's like, whatever, man, I gave you the message. Like, I don't have to justify.
I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't have to justify myself to you. So at that point, it was actually, I had set up a meeting with my boss after that happened to give notice.
Oh, wow.
And then logic and analytical mind started interrogating the messages that I had received. And I actually ended up deciding to work more after that. I had been on a partial schedule, and I was like, oh no, actually, I think I just need to like increase my hours and do this and this and this. And I don't know what I was doing. I had convinced myself that that's what would have fixed things. Of course, like within 2 weeks, you know, the part of me that was screaming on the pages was like, no, this wasn't what we meant. This is way worse. Please stop. And then actually I have 3 younger brothers, and 2 months later, one of my younger brothers got into a very bad car accident. And, you know, fortunately he's survived and he's with us, but it was like a big physical recovery, and I had to fly out to be with him and help him after he was discharged from the hospital.
Yeah.
And the day that I'd heard he got into the accident, or the day after that, was another time actually that I tried to quit, because there was something in his accident that I think reminded me of just how precious this life is. You know, like you don't know when you're going to get hit by a drunk driver. You know, so that I needed to take my happiness seriously. You know, my bosses were like, well, why don't you just take time to be with your brother and to be with your family? You know, you don't necessarily need to quit. And I was like, I think I need to quit. And they're like, no, I don't, you know, spend some time with your brother. After that, I came back and I was like, I still don't want to do this. And then they said to me, well, we think you're burnt out. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, of course. And why don't you take a 2-week vacation over the holidays and completely check out? We're going to tell the entire company, you know, the 200 and something people, don't reach out to her, don't contact her, pretend she doesn't exist. We think that if you have a really good vacation, you might feel better, but we will also respect whatever answer you give us after that. And it was like a week into the vacation that I was like, I just feel so light and I feel so free, and there is no way that I'm going back into that environment. Yeah, so that really helped me, really allowing myself to fully experience, because when I had taken vacations and stuff too, I hadn't really ever let myself check out. I always had like one foot still in the work world, which I think was actually keeping me engaged in the work world versus letting myself truly feel what was under the surface.
I mean, this is such a common theme that I hear, that I have also experienced, that I worked with both my therapy and coaching clients. It is unbelievable. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but it is unbelievable how common it is that it takes something to physically get you the hell away from what you're doing. It's almost like it takes something to physically rip you away from what you're doing. And oftentimes it is like a critical moment. In your case, it was your brother's accident. In some people's cases, it is becoming chronically ill or experiencing illness themselves, right? Whether it's, mental or physical. Such a common thing that I hear and also experience myself, in terms as a recovering high achiever, always recovering, right?
Always.
That it oftentimes takes something really big to kind of, it's like ripping the Band-Aid almost, right? It's like kind of that type of experience. And then when you enter those moments of forced quietness, is what I refer to it, and forced stillness, right? Because even if you're doing something with your brother or you're with yourself, you're not engaged in that other thing. So on some level, there is this sense of forced quietness, forced stillness, forced reflection, if you will.
Yeah.
And I find that it's in those moments that you actually experience the honesty that burnout actually needs. Because, sometimes, as you know, we can't address burnout right away. It might demand answers. We may not have them right away. But in reality, what burnout needs is honesty. And part of that honesty, I think, for people who are high achievers is that, I've been using my achievement as a safety rail or safety guard or a way of feeling seen and valued and heard, not because that was the narrative that they gave themselves, but because it was the label, the narrative that was inherited or given.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And I think that there were a lot of ways that, my, addiction to feeling needed, to feeling important, to being
the honesty. That's the honesty, right?
The one to make it happen, the one to figure it out. All of those things were crutches that then kept me in a situation that ultimately was not serving me.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about the body work that you experienced and that you do. The body, again, in my experience, sometimes the body just insists, and I think this is what you were talking about before, right? The body insists on having conversations that our minds want to postpone, and often does do a great job of postponing. But our bodies often insist on having those conversations. And sometimes it does it through manifestation of, pain, illness, GI issues, exhaustion, all these things. And so I want to ask you a little bit about your exploration of meditation and Reiki and qigong. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Qigong. I always pronounce it the other way around.
I did the same for a long time too.
Qigong. I want to ask you, Allie, if you could maybe talk to us a little bit about what you started to experience in your body, or what you started to notice in your body maybe what that inner experience was like.
Mm.
And did any of it surprise you?
You know, I've been meditating for over 15 years. So actually, it's a practice that I picked up in law school to take really seriously, and that, you know, has sustained me over the years. And in meditation, you know, over time, I felt like it would give me a mirror into the state of my mind. So I'd see that my mind was restless. I would see that my mind was agitated, or I'd see pockets of peace, serenity, joy, ease. And then I'd be like, wait, how do I get more of that? Like, that's different from my day to day. Like, how do I get more of that? So the benefit of my ongoing practice is that I feel like I would get real time feedback and input onto like what was the state of my mind on a day to day basis, and you know what's the default energy that I'm bringing to situations or how I'm navigating situations. And then through qigong, which is an ancient Chinese form of energy work, really closely related to Tai Chi, I would see the way that energy moved through my system. I learned some practices to help me either get rid of like excess energy, anxiety, overwhelm, things like that, or to cultivate more energy in my system if I was feeling like depleted and overwhelmed. So these were all things that I think helped me tune into what's the state of my mind, what's the state of my body, what are what are things that I can offer myself to help me navigate the moment just a little bit more skillfully. The issue was, you know, it's like looking back, it's like I had the practices and I had the information. It was about taking it seriously.
Yes. Yes. It's and I want to say something, you know, about what I've been hearing throughout our conversation. You know, one of the things that I think intuitively do ever since I was little is notice patterns, right? Whether it was on a piece of paper, on a wall, friendships, ever since I was little, I've noticed patterns, which is, you know, no surprise as to why I do the work that I do. One of the patterns that I've noticed coming up for you as we've spoken is actually maybe not a pattern, but a theme, right? The theme of needing to take this seriously. That is what keeps coming up. And it sounds like once you finally decided to take this, in my view, meaning your needs, your wants, your desires, things started to transform for you for the better.
Yes.
Right? You were no longer dismissive of these wants and needs and desires. You no longer saw them as fluff. You no longer saw them as something to kind of, like you said before, put them in the margin, and rather just put them center stage and see, well, what does this look like if I now take myself seriously?
Yes.
Not the self that's expected of me, not the self that is fulfilling other people's needs for them to feel better about the job that they've done with me.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the gift, right? Like one of the gifts of being a high achieving person is that like once you have an assignment, like we're going to run after
God, yeah.
assignment, for better or worse, right?
Yes.
So before, the assignment was what I thought was expected of me, what I thought would earn me praise, what I thought would get me power, prestige, money, respect, all of the things. You know, and I was great at like, you know, doing that assignment. But once I took my happiness and my authenticity seriously, then that was the assignment. Right?
Yes. Yes.
And
I get that.
I had to be just as diligent in prioritizing making that happen. Now the tools, right, are different because that meant I had to slow down. That meant I had to listen. That meant I had to honor intuition, honor how I was feeling, honor my heart.
Yeah. Okay, I have two final questions for you. I could keep you on for
I know, we could chit chat
hours.
for hours, yes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is just like surface, right? But like, in the interest of time, I have two last questions for you. The first question is, do you feel that having made this transition, I'm not even going to call it a transformation because you're still Allie. You're just made some transitions. You haven't transformed yourself as far as I see. Do you feel, or do you think that it has changed your relationships, whether it is your relationships with your parents, I mean, obviously the relationship with yourself has 100% changed, and I see that, and we see that. But has it impacted your relationship with your significant other? Or your parenting?
Once I dropped the mask of what I thought that everyone wanted to see of me, there was room to actually let people in. And I feel like all of my relationships have transformed through that honesty of what was going well, what was not going well, all of the things that I, probably hid from people. Yeah, my relationships feel so much deeper, and I think that people probably feel like there's more room to connect. Because before people be like, oh my God, I thought that you like had it all together and it was all perfect. And honestly, it was like kind of intimidating, it was like unrelatable. And I'm like, oh yeah, because it wasn't real. Like,
yeah.
That's why. So I feel like, my relationships are deeper, more honest, more authentic, more nuanced.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing.
Yeah. Amazing.
People love me more, right? In my messy imperfection.
Well, you love yourself more.
Yes.
So, you love yourself more.
And then it radiates out from there.
It absolutely radiates, and it brings that back in. It brings that love back in through the people that are also open to your openness, right?
Yes.
The last question that I have for you is, what to you defines emotional wealth?
Taking your emotions seriously.
Yeah.
Is emotional wealth. Because if we're not seeing clearly what's happening in our own lives, then, how are we going to act on that? How are we going to create from that place? How are we going to live from that place?
Absolutely. Taking yourself seriously and believing that what your wants and desires matter, and that you're worthy. I love that. Allie, if somebody wanted to be in touch or just simply know what you're up to, where would they go?
Yeah. So start with my Substack that is called Practically on Purpose. You can find it at alliecanton.substack.com. I also am on YouTube and on the socials. Just look for Practically on Purpose. And I've got some guided meditations. I've got articles, essays, interviews, and would love to create community for other high achieving folks who are looking to step into lives of deeper meaning and purpose.
Beautiful. And I'm telling you, Allie is just such a talented writer and a beautiful storyteller. I thoroughly enjoy her Substack. I got in touch with her through her Substack because I was so touched by some of the things that she was writing. So now you've heard a little bit of the story, the beginning of it at least.
Yes.
Allie, thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much for being here today and really giving us this gift that you've given us of, for many of us, permission to lean into more of who we are. And thank you all for listening to Emotionally Wealthy. If this episode gave you insight, if this episode gave you clarity or perspective that you needed, or if there's someone that you feel could benefit from hearing Allie's story, please share this episode. If you want to make sure that this podcast goes out into the world, leave a good review. That always helps. But most importantly, until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and stay emotionally wealthy. Thank you for being here. Oh, hey, quick reminder for you that this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional advice, diagnoses, or treatment. Always consult a qualified professional with any questions you might have.